Yes. Hi guys. How you doing? I hope you can hear me. Please
Yeah.
confirm that you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Uh, nice. It's great to be here, sharing a bit of my knowledge in creating fidelity designs. Be happy to take you through my presentation. If you have any question, you can write it on the chat. Then we can address the questions at the end of the session. The other thing, I will want to ask to have an interactive session that is. So whenever maybe I ask a few questions, maybe feel free to unmute, say something. There's no wrong or right answers. It depends with how you understand. We just want to see how you understand and then build something together. We are here to learn from one another. That's the basis of this session. That being said, we'll be sharing my screen and take it away from there. Right? Andy, please confirm that you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Right, that is awesome. So part of this session, I will be switching off my video at some point during the presentation, just for clarity, and also later maybe I'll switch on probably answering a few questions in there. So if that's okay with the rest of the team, we'll proceed with my presentation. So today we'll be talking about creating high fidelity designs in Figma and also uh, talk about prototyping. And then, so this is what we'll be discussing today. Oops, sorry. Just a minute. Yeah. So this is what we're going to cover today. So we'll basically cover um, basic visual principles. That is the visual elements in design, and also touch on some laws of UX that really govern in the design process. We'll talk about or learn about design system. That is, we'll define what is a design system, understand how to use it, and also our main focus will also be on high fidelity, where we will be converting high fidelity into low fidelity into high fidelity, and also adding basic animations on uh, the fidelity that we'll be working on. So first of all, I will want us to first of all understand what visual design principles are, and maybe you can feel free to unmute and tell us what you understand by the visual design principles. What comes to your mind when you see this, or if someone has read about this, just tell us that maybe one. Or I will welcome three people just to tell us what they understand by the term visual principles and an example and what it means to them. Feel free to open your mic and say something.
I can go. This is
Yes.
Mbeke. I
Okay.
think it's the guidelines that there are guidelines that guide you on how um, to make visual designs.
Okay. That's okay. That is true. Any other person? Hello. Okay. Uh, let's just dive into it. And visual principles, these are just elements that inform us in creating experiences that guide the user. Basically, I can sum this and say that these are just the spices of a great user experience. So what you'll, an example perhaps is, I know the rest of us maybe enjoy a good meal, and ask a question: how will it feel if maybe you're eating or enjoying a meal that maybe does not have spices? I know maybe some of us are not into spices, but how will it feel? Maybe you're eating food that is quite flat. So when you talk about visual design principles in design, we just also talk about the spaces. So what are some of the elements that make design good design? And the first thing that you look at its color. It's very fundamental in visual design because it gives the mood and the tone of a design. It brings certain emotions and also improves contrast, things like harmony within the design, and also it makes the user feel engaged while looking at the design. So there are things that consider in design, and this maybe you can find more in color physiology, defining your color and also knowing what color you need to use for your brand so that they are connected, and also to know your target audience. There's also a normal process that can be done just to define the color and the color and also the brand guideline. So from the this, example shown here, what you can see that on this design, it has an element of color on it. It has a bit of greenish, and it has a white. And from the designer who actually came up with this design, he understands why he used the designs in the way they are, and you can see the contrast with the different elements. So, for example, you can see white, it's a symbol of purity on the design, and also green, it just represents the wellness and the beauty on the product that they're selling. All right. The next principle we'll look at is emphasis. It's also one of the most important elements in design, since it helps the audience know what is your main point. And in design, you can use emphasis or can create emphasis by the use of fonts, the font visual weight, the color, and also things like icons. For example, in buttons, it creates emphasis. So I know maybe you might ask yourself, how do you create a design emphasis in your design? So what are some of the things that you need to consider? So the first thing that you need to consider in design is, as a UX designer, is you want to first of all understand where you want to draw your users' attention to. Basically, is it the heading that you want to bring your attentions to, or is it the button that you want the users to see more? So that's where now you define and understand where you want to draw your attention, and then bring the emphasis. Most of emphasis can be seen in, for example, posters, where maybe you have something like an image that is really big, or the font is quite big. You know, those are some of the things that can be considered in emphasis while creating an emphasis in the design. And then the other thing that you need first of all to understand is what are some of the user goals. So on a website or a platform or in an application, what is sometimes call them UX metrics. What are some of the UX metrics that you want your users to learn or see or actually interact with at first? So it could be, again, the button, maybe a CTA telling them maybe to subscribe, or a CTA maybe telling them to purchase. So first of all, you just need to understand where you want to draw attention, and also what are some of the user needs. The other thing we'll talk about is contrast. It helps differentiate elements in your design. Again, you can see from the example shown here how contrast has been used. You can see the background and also the font color that is dark. You can see how it brings the contrast and draws the attention to the user on a particular heading. So normally, not normally, or when the user lands on this site, they'll be able to see the headings um, without even a struggle. Some of the other advantages of contrast is they help the eye skim through your design in an effortless manner, and times it makes your design really pop. So that if you've really matched your contrast, that is the background, and so uh, the background of maybe elements or typography really makes some of these things really pop up. The other thing is hierarchy, and what we'll talk about hierarchy is hierarchy in design is actually another very important aspect in visual design, because it also guides the audience on what to read and what to look at in the design. It also directs the user to the importance of what you are actually trying to sell out there, and it draws the attention in a way that uh, and it does that the user by creating the order of importance. So in hierarchy, the sum of these three attributes that you really need to capture in the design. So it's one of them is attract, intrigue, and also display the message. So attract is how bold is your maybe text, the font weight, the text size, how bold is it? Does it when I land into your website or I land into maybe something like a poster, am I attracted first of all by maybe the heading, how big the heading is, or maybe the illustration that has been used there, and does it really intrigue me to keep on reading? And basically, this can be achieved by having a hierarchy in terms of defining your type form or the typography. So you define like H1 has 60 pixels, and then the subheading maybe it has something like let's say 30 pixels in terms of the font size. So that's how you create. But we'll be able to look at this later when we are creating the fidelity. Then the other thing is scale. Scale is also very important in design because it brings about harmony and balance, and it shows that things that are similar or it groups elements or elements in a similar way, or and also communicate uh, similarity and also contrast. So one of the things that you consider in scale is that once you adjust a particular for example, an icon, like you're working on an icon and you've adjusted the size of the icon. One of the best thing is to do is that, for example, if you have adjusted the size of an icon, the base size of an icon guide is 24 pixels. So if you have adjusted that to around 48, it's good to also confirm the other font, the other icons within the designs to just confirm if they have the same scale or just adjust them to the same proportion that you adjusted. So that one creates a harmony in your design, and the user will not feel like one of the icons maybe the designer overlooked and maybe did not consider scale in the design. The other visual principles that you can look at, but that have been specified, there is things to do with harmony, which creates that feeling of unity and completeness in your design. So how are your components arranged? Are they arranged in a harmonious way? Are they arranged from the left side, or they are in a zigzag kind of a way? So things to do with the repetition, it contributes mostly to the harmony by also creating consistency in your design. Balance just refers to the visual alignment of the overall design. So basically, if you look at your, for example, our landing page, if you look at it visually, can you say all your elements start from here and they end at this point, or they have the white space or the negative space, which clearly separates the elements in your design? The other thing to consider in as a part of design is movement. Movement just refers to the how the design really flows, and this one will talk about how you arrange your design. For example, the components or something that call let me just first of all talk about the elements. So, for example, on our website, normally how the guideline for our website is that you'll have a logo on the top right, and then the content will start flowing. Users' mind or how users are modeled is that they will look at the logo, then they will skim the site horizontally, and then now move diagonally the bottom left of your site. So how do you create the movement of the eye when the user is actually interacting with your design? That is just a bit of the principles of design, but just like an overview, just skim through. Now we're going to look at the laws of UX and see how these laws of UX really contribute into the principles of design that we've just talked about. And this one, I will just welcome maybe one or two persons. If someone is aware of the laws of UX, maybe they can state one of them, and then we can pick it from there. Anyone wants to make an attempt? Hello, are you there? You can mute your unmute your mic and just say something about laws of UX. Maybe if you're not even aware of that, maybe you can just say you're not aware. We'll be
Hello.
flowing together. Anyone?
Hi.
Hi.
I think I can try.
Yes, please.
There's one law I know where you should be concise. You should not use a lot of text. If it's possible to use minimal text. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Anyone else? Nice attempt. Great. So let's dive in and look at some of the roles of UX in design. So first of all, we look at the Gestalt principle of UX, and it's something that we'll touch a little bit in the psychology of humans, or just basically users, and how they interact with a design, and what they will perceive first when they see a design. It basically describes how humans perceive or see grouped items, and they try to recognize them by building patterns such that the user can be able to predict what is the next pattern that is going to they're going to experience. How simple the complex how simple complex images are, and how can they make them in a way that uh, they can reduce these complex images into a very simple way. So it basically talks about how a human will see a structure in a design, how they will recognize patterns, and how they will look at the design in a different logic way. For example, if you look at an application such as Uber, once you log in or once you open the application, you'll see the splash screen, and then on the sign up page you'll see some form of pattern. So on your mind you start predicting, or you start keying in those patterns in your mind, and that is the next thing that you'll be expecting to see. Some of these principles that we've talked about really relate to the Gestalt principle, because it helps the user understands the design principles that we have. It helps the user understand the design principle that they are expecting to see in the design, things like contrast, the patterns that we use, and also the patterns that we use, the color, uh, and all that. So what there are quite a number of laws that are stated in the Gestalt principle, but for this we'll just look at the three of them: the law of similarity, the law of common region, and the law of proximity. And those will try and look at how these laws really talk into the principle that we have spoken about. So the first of all is the law of proximity. It says that humans tend to perceive similar items or elements in a design to have the same function. This looks the things that they look at is things like color, the shape and the size, and also the orientation. For example, you can see on the next on the example provided here is that you can see the icon, the button have a similar color that is purplish. So already as a user, I have started to create a law of proximity, and I will see, whenever I see a button that has a purple, I will know this is an action that I'm supposed to do, right? Or it's a button that I'm supposed to click, or it has a particular action. So I have already started creating the mental model in my head that if I see a button that looks like this, or I see an icon that has a background that has an opacity, it says that it's a different pattern, or it's a different action altogether. All right. Then we look at the law of proximity. It says that elements that are near or close together tend to be grouped, or that are tend to be grouped together. Elements that really are grouped together are similar in a way. For example, when you look at the next, the example provided here on of a business card, you'll see how you can use the law of proximity to enhance your design, create the harmony, and also the visual hierarchy. For example, the first card, you'll see how the details have been arranged in a different way. So as a user, I will not know which details are grouped together and which ones are more or less related. On the next image, you'll see, or the next card, you'll see that the name and also the location, the street and the location are grouped together. So as a user, I will tend to see these are users' details that these details are grouped together and they are somehow related. Then the other thing we look at is the law of common region, and this says that the elements tend to be perceived into groups if they're sharing an area of are clear and are the elements that tend to be grouped together share like the same similarity. This one can be seen mostly in how we create graphs, you know, and how we group those graphs just to represent one, just to represent a relationship between elements. You can see from the example provided here is that as a user, find it difficult to understand how these elements really relate together because they don't have a common grouping. But on the first example with a green tick, you'll see as a user, first time I perceive this, I will be able to see that these elements grouped together, they have the similarity. But there are other principles, the Gestock principles of design. You can be able to look at, read more from the link provided, the laws of UX.com. It also gives even the best practice in your design. All right. So from that, since now we have understood a bit of the principles of design, some of the rules of design that we need to consider when working or creating interfaces or design. Now let's try and uncover what a design system is. And this is also take it to the participants. Just open your mic and say, what do you understand in a layman language? What do you really understand by the term design system? Anyone? Anyone who wants to attempt what a design system is?
Hi,
Yeah.
maybe I can try.
Yes, please.
I think we can relate more to the name system than the both relating to design system. So I think a system is just like a continuation of maybe smaller activities that are happening so that one goal can be achieved. So relating that to a system, I can say that a design system is the relationship between some progresses or some parts of a general idea that come together to form this system.
Okay, great attempt. Great attempt. You're almost there, but that's a great attempt. Anyone else? One more, please.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi. Hi, it's Joseph. So, according to me, I think a design system is a combination of components, let's say like colors, buttons, or any other elements that will be included in the design.
Brilliant. That's a good idea. That's a good attempt. And that being said, we look at design system. So basically, design system is just a set of standard that manage your design to reduce redundancy while creating an interface. It also forms or guides the design language and also the visual consistency. Mostly it composes of design libraries such as buttons, colors, inputs, documentation, you know, all that thing that you really require to create an interface or an experience. Right. So we can, from the example, from the slide, you can see an example of a design system. You can see what it composes. It composes the widget template. It has defined colors. It has defined typography, and it has also it has even like the image sets that have been guided, or images that are really guided. And yeah, so from here we will look at some of the advantages of using a design system, and why is it important to you as an individual or you as a designer to use a design system, or if you're working within an organization or a company, why it is important to create or have a design system. One of the first advantages of this is it helps the designer and the development create work that can be replicated quickly, and it also relieves the strain of a designer by now starting to creating like a button from scratch. Those components have already been defined, so the designer is left with work of maybe conducting research, yeah, and also going out there to with the customer, maybe sitting down with focus group and just trying to understand what the customer wants, other than sitting somewhere now start creating buttons, and which at some point will not be consistent. All right, it helps also create a unified language within the organization or teams, if you're working with different teams, so that if you're designer A and he's working on a particular project, or he's working on a different team, and is your designer B that is working on a different team, you can be able to collaborate and have the same language, so that if your designer releases something and you also release something, you can be able to match the experience because of how the components are really are the same. Then it also creates the visual consistency across products. So if you're working on an application and you also want to match that application maybe with an app or website, it also creates that consistency because that all elements will look the same. It also serves as an educational tool and a reference to new juniors who are joining. So if you're really onboarding a new designer, they will not have more time now to start learning the new design language. All you need is just share with them a design system that they can use, and they can start delivering value at first. The advantages of using a design system are quite a lot, but sometimes you'll tend to see that not all of designers maybe will use a design system, or not all organization will have a design system, simply because it takes really much time to create a design system that can be shipped and be used across the organization, and most it requires a really fully dedicated team because of all the work that really goes into a design system. So, and also the maintenance. Sometimes you'll find companies or organization really not having a design system because of things to do with the maintenance and yeah, basically how to create one and maintain a design system. All right. So within a design system, we have the building blocks of a design system, and this one will refer to the atomic design framework that has a designer, a UX designer, Brad Frost, really suggested or came up with a framework just to also guide the design process and how you create experiences. So it's sometimes it's not really linear process, but it helps make the designs have a cohesion, and also updating or maintaining the design becomes actually really easy. So we look at some of the building blocks, that is an atom, what molecules are, what organisms are, what a template are, and what really pages are, right? So I know maybe I've brought you or taken your mind back in. For those people who really did chemistry, start wondering why is atom and molecule really important in the design system. But let's see how they are broken down. So an atom basically is from even the chemistry definition is like the building block of matter. It's from the foundation of building interfaces. So an atom really comprises something like a color, the spacings, and the labels. Those small components that you really need so that you can create an experience. Yeah. The other thing is molecules, and a molecule really talks about a combination of an atom. So it is, for example, combining a color and a shape and a text, then you form a molecule, which, for example, here could be a button, an input box, which has a label, which has a box, you know. So after you've combined various atoms, you form a molecule. An example, as I said, so of what forms an organism. So it's a combination of these molecules. So once you combine something like a button and a label or a card, so what do you form? So you form something called an organism. So it's basically an example could be a sidebar, the headers, which contain the logo, contain the navigation, and then contain a which contain even a button. All right. So those are examples of organism. So and then before we go there, so once once you have an organism, and once you combine all these organisms, you form something called a template. And a template could be something like a landing page that you can use that has the basic structure. It has the top navigation, it has a section for the carousel, and it has different cards that are added inside there. And then once you have template, then from the templates, you can duplicate to make different iterations that forms the pages. And you can see how one atom can be used to create a whole experience up to when you have a full functioning page. All right. Now that we understand the basic principles of design, now we have looked at a design system, what it really has. Let's now try and look at one of the some of the say best design systems that you can use or you can explore. All right, so I will navigate here, and there's a design system that I've been looking at. It's called Faster UI. It has all those atoms and molecules defined. So for example, you'll have the colors, you'll have the color palette that has been defined. So all the natural colors, the primary colors defined, and also the color codes, and all the accents, and maybe if you have a gradient color or you have a mesh, all of this has been defined in a design system. So this is what you will get in a design system. All right, it has all these things defined, things like typography, the layout grids, the spacings, and all that has actually been defined. Now that we've seen an example of how a design system looks like, we can at least try and attempt to create one of our own, or we just use a design system to create an experience. All right. So I want to hear what maybe you'll prefer. Do you use a design system that is here, or we try and attempt to create one? Which one would you prefer? Hello, guys.
Hello. Try and create one.
Yes. We try and create one.
Try and create one. Yes.
Okay. So that's awesome. All right. I will navigate to another tab here, and I will create a new page, and I will say maybe I will call it components, because what we see in a design system is basically components or atoms. It's components that are formed from atoms and molecules. So let's create one, say components, and the first thing that you really want to have in a design system is, first of all, from the principles of design that we talked about. Who can remember the principles of design that we spoke about? The first principle of design that we looked at tonight. Anyone who
Color.
remembers the first principle of design was color? Exactly.
Color.
Thanks for that. So all right. So let's create color. So how you normally do it is you can use shortcuts to create an artboard. I click A, and then have an artboard. You can create it as a custom, or you can use the defined artboards that you can use and add it. So let's try and create one. So we will the best guide for creating color, if maybe for example it has not been defined, maybe from the blood guideline. The best thing to do is navigate to material.io. It has like uh, a set of color palettes that have been defined, and maybe you get something that one should consider using, maybe if you're creating one. All right, let me switch my screen so that we can look at that. Give me one moment. This is better so that I can navigate like this. All right, so let's navigate to material.io. And let's try and look at the colors that the color palette that they've defined. So you'll navigate to color and then see the system colors. Yeah, let's say we are going to use, let me just scroll down and see. It's also given you the guide on how to use primary colors, the different shades, also different shades and tints. I'm trying to get for a good color. Let me see.
Good.
Yeah, for example, yes.
We cannot see.
Hello?
I cannot see your screen. I cannot see your screen.
Okay, who else is having a challenge seeing my screen? How about now? Are you able to see my screen? Sorry for that.
Yes, we can see.
Oh, great. Let's try and look for a good color. I think this one pops. All right, so let's pick pink 500. So we'll choose the primary, the main color, 600, and then we create. So I will create a box here and add the color code that I've picked. All right, and then define this as my primary color. All right, I can always go back and get the other shades. 700, I can duplicate here and add the color. The same, I can pick this, add it here. And once you've defined your color, for example, you've selected your color, the best thing is to create a library, a color library. It becomes easier for you to use these colors in the subsequent items that you're going to use. For example, the buttons, uh, the label, what color of the label will you use? So how to do it is you just click uh, on this icon with I think 4 dots, and then you click on the plus where you'll now say it's main ink, and then you create as a style, a color style. So you can select the other one, do the same, and create a style. Maybe you can say this is pink 200, pink, just as example, 700. And then you create your style. Same way, you can click here, add, and then so this is pink 900, for example. All right, you've already started to define your color within your design system. So you can say these are like the primary colors, then you can duplicate this and then edit, or yeah, you can just duplicate this, click on this icon that says detach instance, so that now you can add another color. For example, let's go back to this and then let's look for a different color, a complementary color. Let's say we're going to use this, the black gray.
Excuse me,
So
Godfrey.
yes.
I wanted to ask maybe something to also inquire from you is that these are just not colors, they're mostly brand colors. So how you make decisions based on what colors to use, how to make the tones or grade or different types. What am I saying? If you want to decide on a color scheme, basically it has to go with your brand. So they're not just colors that you're putting out there, unless I'm wrong.
Yes, it's not color that you're just putting out there. Again, like I said, if it has not been defined from your brand guideline, all right, then you just don't. If it has been defined, of course, you'll use those colors and create them. Here is your style. But if you have not been defined, of course, the best way you can do this is so that you just don't throw in colors. You can come to Material Guide or come to Color Wheel. It will help you create. You can come to Color Wheel, and then it will help you create a color that will or a color palette that is just not color that you've just thrown in there. So, for example, let's look at what this color, our pink, what it will propose, like the complementary colors. You can search for the analogous colors, and it can give you like a match of the colors that you can use that are matching and that will have a bit of contrast when you're creating your own design system. All right. So, for example, you've added that color, then you can just switch, toggle between the two, and just get the different colors that you can use, static or complementary colors. This is quite off. I don't know why that's proposing this. I think this took color too much. But anyway, that is not our essence at the moment. We're just trying to see how we can create color palette within and form a small design system of our own that we can use in creating a design. So let me go back. I hope I've answered you.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So let's look at the other one. I will detach this one, then add my color. Then I can also add as my library, and I can say gray 700, and I create my own style. This we have not created this one, so let's create this and say it's main gray. Then let's look at pick this color code 800. Detach this, then add our color. The different way you can do that. So basically, every design has their own way of creating. Let me say this is gray 800, for example, right? And you've started to form your color palette. So someone might mute. Thanks for that. So let's define one more. Maybe for the text. This one could be for the text. Let's define the main also color that is normally used. That is the white. Let's also just define it. I think there's no design without a white color. So we can say this is main. Then you create your style. So you've started to create your color palette, right? This of course is not the best color palette, or it's not the best color combination, but I hope you get the gist of the conversation here. All right. Then the other thing that you'll need to define is typography. Also, typography is really important in what we call in what we mentioned about creating harmony and visual hierarchy. So normally, how you'll go about this is create your heading. Sorry, heading. All right. How do you define the type scale for your typography? Again, you will navigate to material guide material.io. Sorry, and then come to design, and then navigate to the typography system. Where it will give you a guide of how to create your type scale. I will define my font here as Poppins. I am a big fan of Poppins. I don't know who else is. Then it will create for you the typography all the way from H1 up to the last font. So from here, you can now pick all these properties of the type scale, and then start creating on your your design system. So normally, for H1, normally these are headings for websites, or for desktop versions. For mobile, I think the best typography to start is maybe is that the type scale is 33 pixels. So I will pick this as 33 pixels. I will key in the font, that is Poppins. I will key in the size, that is 33 pixels. Then I will define the letter spacings like that. And then this forms, if I've added all the, I will confirm again. Yeah, so for example, let's say I've added, this is my H1, but you can also start from H3. It depends with now the design edition and how you want to create your own harmony in your design. So I will select this, and after adding all this, I will now create a new library for my design system. So let's duplicate this, and let's say this one. Let's begin with H3. Let's pick 43 pixels. It's a bit bigger, so let's have that. The letter spacing is at 0. Right? So this is my H1. So I will again come here and add as a style and say this is H1. I will duplicate this and give it a different parameter. I can just detach, and then it's semi-bold. Now I can say I want a medium, and then I will create this one and say add, and then I'll say H1 medium. One medium. Yeah. Just to
Excuse
get
me,
different
Godfrey.
weight. Yes.
Are
Yes, go
those
ahead.
weights? Are those weights that you're talking about?
Yes, I'm talking about the font weight.
Okay.
Great. So I will have another heading here. I'll say it's also Poppins, and then this time I want a weight that is a bit smaller. So I'll say it's regular. It will still maintain the same properties. For example, say this is H46 pixels also, and the letter spacing is that. Then I can create all this. So I will have different weights for my H1. This one is already added. Then I will add this on my style. I will say it's H1 regular, for example, and then I will create. So I will already have I have a H1 heading. So I can duplicate this and now start creating H2, where I'll now go to headline 4 and then pick the properties. Can detach this, add the heading 2, the letter spacings also. I will maintain that. I can duplicate this before I add, and have this as I'll have this first of all, sorry, I'll have this one as a bold one. Then I can have this as a medium, and then I can duplicate one more to have this as regular, right? Then from this, I can now create my library. So I'll create one of them and add and say this is H2 bold, and I create a style. The same. This H2 medium, and then right. So I will have defined my H1 and H1, and there's the same follows up to when you've reached the smallest fonts in your design. You've defined all your H1. So how do we use this one? Once you create this and add it to your library, whenever you have, for example, text and say, maybe hey there in your design, it becomes easy for you to append this into your typography, into your text that you've added. So you just select, and I will see my defined type scale that I've used. I'll just click, and then it will change automatically. And the good thing about this, once you change one of them, it changes on all the other, we call them atoms that you used, maybe H1. So that's how you go about creating your design system up to where you have reached types design system that has all this that has been defined. And also you can even talk about you can basically talk about the documentation. All right, talk about the grid and all that. I hope that's okay. So from that, since I've just shown you how to create a small design system, let's see how we can create, because of time, let's see how we can create a design from a design system that has been done, and see how we can use that design system and also convert that design, the design that we'll do, into high fidelity. I think that's the basis of our conversation, but I think you are just following and gotten the gist of how to create, how to define, how to add colors to your library, how to add typography, and basic the other atoms, and how you can do that. Maybe we can do one before we go. Let's create a button. This is going to be very important in our design. Let's see how it's created. Normally, there are different ways how you can create a button. My normal way, how I find it easy, I'll create a button here. I'll just take text and then add auto layout. I will select this one and use the shortcut Alt A if you're Shift A if you're on Mac, and the other one is Alt A if you're Windows. I'm not sure, but you can confirm that. So you have added your button, and you've added your text, and you've added your auto layout on your button. So one of the first thing I would like to do is I will align this button to the center. And after I've done this, and then I will now come in and add in my constraint. My constraint, I would say, let it be fixed at the center, so that even once I move this button, everything becomes close to responsiveness. So after I've added that, then I will add my fill. From the colors library I have, I'll just select one of them, and then on the constraint now, other than now we'll work on this padding. So I'll define maybe this one's to be around 16 pixels, the padding on top, and then this one to be around 24 pixels. I can change the text color by you selecting the color style that I had added, and you'll have your button. Now you can make it a bit interesting. So perhaps now define also select the typography. I'll say this is a bit bold. Maybe I can reduce it to that. Then I can work on the paddings, uh, top and bottom, horizontal padding. I can give it a 16, and then this one I have it at 16. It basically depends on how you want to have to form your button, to create your button. All right, so I can add in the border radius just to make it a little bit easy on the eye. Once you stretch this, the button becomes responsive, so that even if I'm working on a desktop and I stretch this button, I don't have to worry about the size and also the proportion and the text inside there. So that's how you normally create a button. But now I'll be able to show you another trick. Once you create, or once you select your text here, once you're maybe done with this, the other thing you can do is create a component from this button. It will help you create different variants of this button. And variants basically means the different occurrences of this button. So it can have a stroke, it can have a darker background and all that. Let's see how we can do that. So I'll create a component, then I will right click this just to rename and say this is, for example, let's say a button. right, I've created a component. So from here, I can create different variants of this button. But before I create a variant, I want to create, oh, it's already created here, the text property, so that whenever maybe I have an instance of this button, I don't have to double click to the master of this button just to change the text inside that. I can navigate to, once I select that, let me just check where it is. It seems to have lost on me. Here. So let's first of all create a variant, then we'll look into that later. Yeah, let me apply a text property. Yeah, this is what I was looking at. So within your main component that you've created, you can create another text variant that you can use this button in different variants, but you don't have to double click to the main text that you added onto the button just to change the placeholder. So you can create a text variant and then say this is a label, for example, and then the value is in the main, it is yeah, button here, or just let's say button, and then you create property. So whenever you have a duplicate of this, you will only select that button and add here. So you don't have to double click onto this button to change this. So you can have a different copy for that. Let's say, for example, submit now. And once you click that, you'll have the label change. So you can use this button in different variants, but you don't have to double click to work on the main component. All right, so from this button, again, you can create different variants. So I'll show you how to create one variant. Then we can just go back and work on a design of a design system that has been created. We can just use one design system. So how I'll do it is that I will select this button, and then on top here, there is an icon that says add variant. Once you click that, it gives you properties where you can change. For example, I can change this variant to maybe over. I can give it a property. I can give it a property here. So let's say over. Sorry, the property is over, but now the value here becomes let's say over, for example. By still selecting that, now I can now change the properties of this button. I can give it a different shade, and that's it. So once maybe I have this button, I can even change the state from hover from default, and then say hover, and you see it automatically change. So I can have an instance of this button in so many ways, in so many ways, but it has different properties, but still talks to the main button. That's the main component that we created. All right, I think that's quite something that we have done today. So let's see how we can create a design from a design system. For example, let's say you're an organization, you already have a design system, or you already took time and created your design system from scratch of all those atoms. You have the components, you have the atoms, you have the molecules, and you have the other one that we called organisms. Yeah. Let's see how we can do that. So I will navigate to my homepage, and then from the community, you can just search for design system, and you can get to see a lot of design systems that maybe you can use or modify if you're working on a solo project, and help you create your designs or make your designs easier to use. But for this example here, we will use a design system or a wireframe kit that it's called cut frame. So let's look at cut frame. So I'll look at it. It's the wireframe kit that done by Vinchu. So it basically has components, it has documentation, it has screens. So basically duplicate this how we, some of the components that are inside this wireframe kit or a design kit. So there are different design systems. So there's the general design system, but there's also an app design system or a web design system. A web design system basically has uh, basic components such as the headers. It has defined for you how the form fields will look like, the menu, how it will look like. And when you come to design app design system, it will give you components that you require in to develop what? To develop a mobile application, right? So again, for example, this the one that you've duplicated, it has the colors that have been defined, it has the type, the text, the icons defined, the typography that has been defined, all these that have been defined, even the buttons and different variants of those buttons. So let's see how we can use this design system that we have duplicated and create a design low fidelity to high fidelity. I'll just be able to create a few screens and then show how to make animations from that. All right. So I will create from the design system that I've duplicated. Normally, you'll have a design system that sits separate from what you're working on. All right. But let's, for this purpose, for this session, let's just work on a design system. Work on a design that is inside the design system. So I'll create a new page and say, uh, let's say, let's call it mid file, for example. I had done some sketches of something that we'll want us to create today. So let me duplicate my sketch and bring it up here, and then look at what we can create from here. Oops, yeah, it's loading, sorry. All right, so the first thing that we will do is, again, create an artboard. This is the sketch that we're going to use. So normally we could just have, it's not quite clear, no? We'll have a splash, then we'll have an onboarding, we'll have a sign up, then we'll have a landing page, and then we'll have a details. But basically, let's try and build a dating application, a few screens of a dating application. We'll set this aside, then create my artboard, and then just choose the frames that have been defined here. I will use, let's say, iPhone 8. Let's work with iPhone 8. But you can choose whichever device you want. The base is always the base that is quite required. Suggested material design is use the Android small because of people with small devices and also different PPIs. But for this design, let's just use iPhone 8. The first thing that you'll do when you've created an artboard is now defining the layout grid. And layout grid helps you to create harmony in your design. It helps you fix or becomes easy for you to work on spacings in your design. All right, so let's define the grid. So I will click on the layout grid first of all, and then for this design system, it doesn't have a layout grid, but let me just show you how we can use one, then import one because of time also. So I'll click on this, I will select it is a column, and then I will select the count to be 4. I'll maintain the opacity to this, then I will set this to stretch, and then set my margins to around 24 pixels, and then leave the gutters at 20. So from here, I've already defined where my designs will start and where they will end. Horizontal one, now you can create another one that will help you in, you can create a grid that will help you in a row that will help you in spacings. So we'll set the counts for mobile, for example, 800. I will change the color for this, or just leave it at that. I will set the type as stretch and then set the margin as 4, and then set the gutters at 20. Okay. Yeah, this will be center. We'll set the height as 8. And then the gutters is, let me just refer something. When you're creating the rows, you can set the gutters as 0 so that they have a 8 pixels height or grid. So now that talks about the 8 pixels grid. But once maybe you're on mobile, you can use the 4 pixels other than 8 because it makes your elements a bit fluid and a bit organized. On where when you're creating a web interface, or when you're having a web, then you can use the 8 pixels grid. But for app, you can just go with 4. All right, so I have defined my grid system, and then it's time now. Let's start building the design. So the first thing I will probably do is have this as splash screen. So I can say this. I can name this as splash screen, and I can add a logo. From the design system, it has defined atoms, it has molecules, and this one they call them system, which is supposed to be different. Design system name it different. So let's look at how we can use this. Now I will search for a component. I will look for an image on a splash screen. Let's say we said we from the sketches we have splash maybe has a logo, so we'll define the logo there. We can use the layouts on top here just to align our designs uh, horizontally, vertically. Then I can duplicate this and then have it as from our design we have let's say the onboarding. So we have onboarding. All right. So we'll delete this and then create now the onboarding elements. So I will come here and look for maybe something like slider. Hopefully they have defined. Good. So we'll drag and drop this and place it at the center. And you can see my designs are quite correctly arranged. Uh, the margins and the padding, you can see that this component here will align the margins that have been left on both sides are, it actually fits on my layout grid that I've added. So I have that, then I will have something like text. Sorry, we're just touching a little bit on how to create wireframes also using a design system, but now we can convert this into high fidelity. So I will say I have, for example, text. Let's see if they have something like a text. Let's pull this one here. So I will add this inside here. Then I can change the the appearance of this text. At times you can just detach the design system if maybe you want to make some changes on your design. So we'll select that and then I can detach instance but still create as a component once I've done my changes. So we'll select all this and then align them to the center. Let's say I want to have my text at the center. So from the layout grid, I will select this at the outer layout, and you see it has arranged my placeholders text at the center. Then I will pull in a button and place it inside here. Let's say it fills the whole section. So I've already defined like an onboarding screen. So I can look at this by just toggling this eye off and looking how it will look like. And let's say maybe you're comfortable with that. So what are some of the things that we need to do? Now, from this, let's create another screen. But from here, we can just give the label for this button. We can call it something like, let's refer to our wireframe, our sketches, continue. Sorry. Right. Or instead of maybe continue, let's talk about get started. Get started. Right. So that maybe forms our first onboarding screen. Then we can, from the sketches, let's see what we have next. From the onboarding screen, let's say we have a sign up page. So we'll delete all of this, then enable back migrates by switching this, and then add in my image. Let's say on this splash screen, I want to have an image. So I can drag it and drop it at least at the center of this by using my alignment. Then I can select something like, let's say I want to have this as the login details or the login fields to have it on bottom sheet. So I can choose a bottom sheet here and add it, then stretch it to whatever I want. And you will notice that you can notice some a red line that is snapping onto my column. This will help me in making sure that my designs are leaving like 8 pixels breathing space on the designs, on the different elements, sorry. So after that, I will probably say I want to have a different background. So I'll choose a different background and then my bottom sheet there. Then I can now start adding what form, for example. Or instead of form, yeah, let's choose a button. Let's choose a button here. Let's say we want to have this person log in with Google. So for example, we can search for the form field. Give me a minute. Look for something in the design system that has what we need. Let's look at the molecules and see if we'll get what we want. Right. So let's just go with the form. So form, let's search for an name, but I will drag and drop it here and then say the type is maybe it has a left icon. It has a it has a left icon, for example. Then I can choose the type of icon that I want by double clicking on this. Then I can choose the name of, maybe for example, I want someone to log in with Google, and you change. So how you create this is creating elements or components that has different instances. I think that's another whole conversation that we can talk about, or maybe the next speaker can teach you on how to create different instances on imports. So for example, I'll say I will have login with Google, and then here I will have it login with Facebook, for example. So double click on this icon on the instance that it has. I can be able to change. Can be able to change the icon. Yeah, I'll double click and then get to change the icon. For example, let's say Facebook. It's already been defined. So already you have these icons created as components. So that's why you're seeing them appearing there. So here we'll have a text on this section. So let's say we are comfortable with that as our login screen. Then maybe let's say we don't want this. So when you just delete it, it will delete, but on the layers it is still there. It will be hidden, but it is still appears. Let me show you how it is. Yeah, so for when you delete this icon, doesn't get deleted per se, but it gets hidden where you can just enable and disable it. That's the essence of having a design system that has all these components created and have been added to the outer layouts to them. All right, so we'll duplicate this one more and have our after the sign up page, let's say someone has signed in, and then we want to have the landing page. So delete all this, and then I can, first of all, the first thing I will look for from the design from the sketches is the text, find your happiness. So From this, I can just duplicate this and drag it on top here. There is always when you're also creating your grid, you can create a grid where a row where you can where your up bar or the status bar will begin. So you can always create it on top here. All right. So, but because now maybe the design system has guided has the up bar defined, so you can just search for this up bar, and then instead of the up bar, let's try to see a header. Yeah, and header will be added here, so you can just select and add in your header so that you have a header where you have the navigation to your on your design. For example, on this landing screen, then you'll have this. I will make my to have like a 4 pixels grid, so I will leave 1, 2, 3, 4 columns so that the designs get that fluidity and they're not stretched or compressed together. So we'll have again that, then I can search for something else like a search and then pull it. Oh, let's look for a form. Sorry, let's look for an input. Yeah, I can select an input, then add it here. Then I can now change the parameters. Maybe I say it has a left icon, it has a left icon, and it is yeah, just to represent the search here. I can disable this just to see how my design is coming up. I can now remove the color that I had added on this page so that it's white background. Let's look at this. Yeah, I can either disable that or just select my color to be white. Then I'll have that. Then I'll move. So I'll have something like a search. Then what else do we want? We want icons. Yeah, from our sketches, we want some icons. Again, from the design system that has been created, the app design system, I will look for icons which have been defined. Then I will drag and drop it here, for example. Then I can give it different parameters. Just a minute. Machine is a bit slow. Right, I can either select that or just choose another icon here. Let's see. Let me see what we have from our atoms. Yeah, let's select this. Maybe let's say we want to have images. I can now be able to duplicate. But now once I'm duplicating, let me just switch on my grid so that my designs have a flow. So I can select 2 of them, then the other one to overflow. We'll stop this or just work on this and add the layouting, for example, like this. So from here, I've just added, depending on my design decision, I've added the cards here. Then from there, I will now select one more thing. For example, I'll say an image. Again, I will drag and drop it here. Make sure that you're following the grid system. So I will leave 4 rows here so that all my elements have 4 a breakpoint of 4 pixels. Then I can be able to stretch this up to that. All right, so maybe let's say this one, the user will now be able to have a a text on top here, they can be able to search and then you can be able to give them. Someone maybe means to mute. Sorry. Okay, thanks for that. All right. And then the last thing that maybe we can say we want to pull is the bottom nav. So again, you can just search for the bottom nav and drag and drop it here, and then just attach it by size to make it fit. So for example, from this, see we have used our design system to create a wireframe. Then the other thing is how do we now move this person? Good of time, maybe I'll just switch there, then show you how we can convert these wireframes into a high fidelity design, right? So I will, for example, disable that and have my wireframe. So the other thing maybe I could do is on the layers, maybe I can just duplicate this and rename this to hi-fi. Hi-fi. Yeah. Then with my illustration, I can still work on it with that. Yeah. So what happens now when I want to convert this is that again from the design system that I already defined the colors. So if the images are again if are defined or they're not defined, I can just select this and then go to plugins, manage. Okay, let's get one plugin for this. Browse plugins and then let's look for Unsplash. We want to add images onto our design. What can we do? I will install this and then navigate back to my design. Then Splash easy. Oh, we were looking for Unsplash. Sorry. Go to plugins and then yeah, Unsplash is here. Then, for example, let's say it's a logo that I have, I can just attach it there. Maybe use it, I want to use an image. I can just go to my plugins and I don't know why this plugin installed the wrong one. Those plugins, let's look for Unsplash. Unsplash, yeah. Okay. Sorry for that. So let's look for the plugin. It has already been installed. So let's see how we can now start adding in real images, real text on our design. So we look for that, and let's say we look for a person or just a logo. Let's look for a logo for this. Remember here we want to add a logo. So we can either use a logo or maybe if we can't get a logo, we can say we'll have a full image on our design. So I can just select this again and add a person. Right. So let's say add that person. Let's say maybe we don't have a logo. I will select and add this person on the design. Okay. Okay. Let me move that. Okay, no, let me not move. So what we'll do is that for example, let's say we have a logo. Let me just go to Google and search for a dating logo that I can come and fix. Let's say we are designing something like the Love Match logo. I can copy the image and then come and drag it here. You see now I started, let me get this, I can add it here. So now I started adding my a bit of images on the design. So on the splash screen again, I select this and go to plugins and splash, then look for something like a lady, touch that, and then, or let's say look for something like a button. Then I'll select that. It will load and it will get populated here. So I can now come here and remove the icon. Since now I can use real images, I'll select the other one and then select another one, image, and it will get added onto the background. Another one I'll select and add it there. It will get added to my background. So already here from the design, we already have like real images that we are going to use on our design. Just give me a minute. I take a glass of water. Right, thanks. So the other thing that we'll do here we have defined that we want to use text. All right. So what we do is that remember we had defined our typography. So I can either detach this because this just shows the placeholder here. I can now remove this or ungroup or just detach. Let me just ungroup this one. Then my heading will be there and then the subheading will be there. So I will come here and select my title and say something like, let's look at our design again. Find your partner with us, for example. So find I will select and make it at the center. Then from the typography I had added, then I can select which heading I want. For example, select semi-bold one. The type system has come with a design system that we have just duplicated. So we'll just be able to use that. Then I will duplicate this and add another. I think maybe this is not bold enough. I can now change again the heading. For example, I can make it a little bit bold. Maybe with 40 is too much. Let's say 28 pixels. Again, this is now where I start creating a visual hierarchy and how the design that that you're going to make. Then we'll have another text here. For example, it will say, join the community and find love, for example. Then I can give a different type scale. We look for semi-bold. This is supposed to be as a heading, a subheading. So I will look for text. Maybe I will not go far away from bold. I will look for medium, maybe with 16 pixels. Align it to the center. Then I will enable my grid also just to make sure that I give a breathing space of around 4 pixels to the designs. The spacing of 4 grid. 4 pixels, sorry. So let's say, for example, you have that, then you can change the button to the state that you want. Again, from the design system, from the button, you can just change different states. You can give it different states. And then I will choose the color as, for example, let's say we have pink. Okay, from the design system, let's say we have it as, yeah. Great. So that's how it's now start creating, adding color to your design. I know it's not the best perfect design right now, but you just get how you can now use the design system and how you can now start adding content and adding a bit of color onto your design. So for this one, I had said we define that maybe they will have an image. I can now delete that because let's say I want the design, the image to fill the whole background. So I will disable that and then now come in and add go to my plugins, go to Sunsplash, and then I can look for, let's say for abstract background. Right, that really is not so far away from our design. Okay, that's too sharp. Let's try something else like this, or one that has a bit of yellow. Let's say we have something of this sort. So we'll have that as a background, right? And then now from the buttons, now we can now start changing the color. So we can give the selection to have the color of maybe palette that we have. For example, Facebook, we can now define or give the colors to Facebook, the brand color for Facebook, and so on and so on. So for this one, I can be able now to detach the instance and create my own text. But you'll get labels that really have, or design systems that have defined an icon, and instead of this placeholder, they have defined the text. It's supposed to be somewhere here on the design. Let me just confirm. On the asset page. Look for login. Okay, seems that it's not there. But anyway, from the design system, here, let's look at the components. They've defined the light. They've defined how the mobile's UI will look like. So let's just get something from here. Yeah, something like this. So you can just copy that and bring it to your high fidelity and okay, now you can align this. Oh, it's grouped. Sorry, let me enable back my grid and then add in my button. So for example, let's say there, so I will have login with Google, and then I can duplicate this and give a spacing of, for example, 28 pixels. That's around the 4 pixels grid system. And then this one, I'll say login with Facebook. It's Facebook. Then I can change the icon and say Facebook, right? Then maybe we can have that as that on the login, but now we can now start adding in color. You can, from the color library that you've set, now you can now start changing the color. For example, give Google the color that it deserves. So you can detach this, and then, for example, say Google color is just an example. It's maybe the reddish. So you select this. This is pink, sorry. So you can select something that is reddish, for example. Yeah. Then we can also add it to our stroke. So we can add a stroke. Now once we add the stroke, once we add the stroke, add our stroke component. Yeah, we can add our stroke from there, and then we can again add it and say red in your library. So you'll be able to use this later. The icon, you can either maintain that or just find the right icon for Google, and then you can use. All right, do the same here, and also add in the change the search icon, and then add in a few images on this. Then we can be able to see how we can now add a few of animation on our maybe from this screen to the screen, and then the learning screen, and then we can proceed from there. All right. From this one, again, from our sketches, we've done something, find your happiness, then we'll have a search, right? So again, I can just be able to detach this. It's not the best practice for detaching components from your design system. It's not the best because once changes are made there, it means your design system will not have the updated design changes. But because this one we're just having our placeholder, then we can detach this or ungroup, then now work adding the correct wording for that. So we'll be able to duplicate this. And sorry for one thing that I maybe missed to do this is once maybe you have defined your typography, then you can maybe select all of it and add auto layout. It will really help you on spacings between these two elements. So I'll select that, I will duplicate that, and then I will add it on top here. Then I can change the wordings. You just confirm, find your happiness. And your happiness. Right. Then I will attach, align it to the center. And then on the search icon, I can come in and now update this with a proper search. Sorry. Again, let me enable my design guidelines that I leave spacings of 4. Find your comment and maybe find lab. We can just have the same caption. Then I will count 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I can say this is search. And then from here, you can add your icon as a search icon, right? You can change the opacity for this so that doesn't really, not quite shouting. Then you can add in labels, or add in images. Let's first of all just add in images. So I'll select one of them, again, go back to my plugin and splash, and then look for James for man. Just look for man. Add this. Then from this one, I'll just be able to either delete that, but like I said, it's not going to be deleted, it's just going to be disabled. Then you can look for this person, you can add in this. Disable that by just clicking the delete key. I can add another person and delete. So I'll have like a list of people. But now something else that we really missed out is adding the label. From our sketches, we have something like a label, maybe something like near you, or this could be your favorite depending on your location. Yeah. So we can now add in a label. So I'll select all this and then add in my text. From the designs, let's see, we have something like text. Right. So we say that our text is supposed to appear here. I will again leave a 4-column grid, 1, 2, 3, 4, and make it here. So we here will where we'll have our text, and then these images will begin on 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, I'll have my text from here. Then again, I can just add another image from here and splash, and then look for, let's just look for dating something. Right, so I'll just again select on my icon, then remove it from there. So we'll have some sort of your design, and you start building or adding elements or really content on your design. Right. So that's how you actually that's how a design system will help you work on wireframes. Is it so that you can even test early or just work on the flow, then come back on from the design system, update the various elements. For example, with images, adding, correct buttons, and so on and so on. Changing the labels for your, adding maybe labels for your bottom navigation, and so on and so on. So that's how you basically be able to use our design system. I know I've not really expounded more, but I think you basically understand um, how that can be done. All right. The other thing I will want maybe just to touch on briefly is about animation. So how do you create animations from this? Let's say you've completed your design from the design system, and then you want to now start creating animation. Just navigate to the animation section, and you'll see a small circle with a plus that now you can be able to create and connect your screens, right? Once you click and connect to another frame, there's a pop-up that's going to appear. Then you can choose what event will trigger. That's going to go to the next one. So for example, here it could be after delay. Let's say after delay of, let's say, for example, 1 milliseconds, then navigates to the onboarding, and then the animation, we can have it as smart animation. So when you click on smart animation, then Figma will be, is brilliant enough just to be able to create an animation or keyframes for your designs. So once you're done, maybe connecting a first screen, you can click and preview the design and see how the transition really happens. Right. The other thing maybe you can choose is the device. So you can choose the device. Scrolling, so the prototyping, I can just choose the device. And for example, this one, I'll say maybe Nokia 8, or let me say I don't want a device, right? So I'll say none, right? I think it's best without a device. The prototype, and then be able to see. So this one really, you can click on R just to restart. Then that really happens so fast. Now we can come in and adjust your keyframe. So other than 1 millisecond, let's say we have something like 150 milliseconds. That the screen will appear immediately after the splash screen. Then you can come navigate back and then click R and refresh. Still quite fast, right? Let's work with 1500. So at this point, you just play with the duration until once you get a fluid animation that you are comfortable. So let's say we have that, and then it pops up. So how you can make this a little bit interactive is that you can duplicate this login screen. So let's duplicate it there, and then let's say this um, animation appears from here. The trick about creating this animation is, for example, when you select this and when your cursor moves out, the component that you selected gets out of the artboard. So the trick is to make sure that this cursor does not go out of the frame, right? So I will say maybe it starts from there, or instead of that, let's say it just appears from, it's at the center, but we work with opacity and say the opacity for that will be, we can start with opacity to be 0, right? So that now after this screen happens, appears, then navigate to this smart, and we'll click on after delay. We can set this to 200 milliseconds, and again, just do smart animate. Let's see what happens to this. Again, you can still do the same to this. We have like an opacity of 0, and then once it gets to this, then we'll have an animation. Let's see how it appears. So again, we're just playing around with this. Let's say we have this one reduced so that it probably pops, and then let's say this one is this, all of this appear below here. Let's see how it will pop on our animation. I will click on Art just to restart. You see, so again, just making this appear in a natural way, other than the way it actually pops. You can make it appear in a natural way. But basically, that shows how you can create like a now more interactive animations from the design that you've created. Okay. Again, so I would get back to this section, just try and make sure that it is a bit fluid. You can just work on a few things here. Again, let me just refresh and see. So you'll have that, then pops. Other than the way it pops, maybe I can say this one to be quite small. Then again, you can just go back to your design and work on the opacity. For example, just have it 100% so that you can preview what you're working on. Then you can now change the opacity. For example, I will have this can be small. Let's say it appears naturally that way, and have it opacity is again 0. Let's see if it's a bit fluid. At least something is coming up, but anyway, again, this takes a bit of practice and just working with playing around with the keyframes of this design and making sure that you have a very fluid animation that you can work on your prototype and maybe perhaps share or present this during reviews. So again, for this screen, I will say when the user, let me just remove this. When the user clicks on Get Started, it navigates to this screen. It can be on click. We can work on a smart animate and let's see how it will appear. Just navigate to this and press R. It will refresh and then boom, we'll have our next screen appear. The same way you can do this if you want to make the animation again appear naturally. So you can select this and say they will have an opacity of 0. The shortcut for that is double clicking, or it will have an opacity of 0 if you really good with shortcuts or memorizing shortcuts. Then I will go navigate back to my prototype and connect this and have it on after delay. For example, this could be maybe 5. Still work with smart animate and then ease in and ease out, and then see how it will appear. That's quite long again, so just need to work on the time frame. For example, let's work with 200 and see how it will appear. And then you'll see. So you'll have your animation, then you have clicks, and then they will appear. So something we can also work on maybe on top here, we can have like a heading that is so that we just don't leave the user without just communicating what we want to do. Remember, our part of our discussion on principles of design, so you just have to make it even a way that even your users are not confused on which screen they are and what really happens on that screen. So again, I can make this one, maybe find happiness and then join a community and find love. For example, that I can just duplicate and have it here. And then reload the animation. So this one, instead of it appearing on top, I can have this an opacity again of 0. I will click 0 just to make it disappear, but appear on the next screen. When I click Get Started, then my title will appear. Right. So again, the goal for the animation is just to keep on playing with your artboards. I think the best thing is, or the best advice for this is that you have already you have it already figured out how you're going to do this, so that you don't really keep on duplicating screen and you're not even figured out how the different animations will up here. One final thing that I'll be able to show you is that on the button that we created, or the button that we have, we can create a variant of this button and now even animate this button inside our variant. All right, so let's see how we can do that. So I will duplicate this button here and then create a variant, create a variant of this, create a variant, this layout. Let's go to the main component. Sorry, that's the best one. Let's go to the main component, which is here. It's already been created as a variant. So we'll select this and add a new variant. And then let's create a new variant. Create variant. Current variant. So let's create a variant for this. I will select and maybe drag it somewhere here. Or the easiest way is once you have a variant, then just select on the whole of this. Then it will give me an option to create variants with this. Create a button. Then I can create a variant. Let's try and create a variant from here and see. Then I can drag it here and then say this is it's a large button. It is the state is dark, so we can just change this to maybe create another one. Let's say hover. Right. Okay, let me navigate back. Sorry for that. Let me just use it here so that I show you how you can create a variant, an animation within your variant. So let me create it here. I will detach an instance of this button. I will select it and create a component and then add a new variant of this button and then add it, say, over. Then I can say, for example, each a property of hover or a state of hovered. Then I can select the color. Can come here and just change the properties a little bit. Let's say we have, I'll detach this, then make get a darker shade of this. Then I can cut it to my library as yellow dark or yellow over, depending on how you're going to name your colors. So what you can actually animate something from here. So when you have your button, you can just click on prototype and then animate it from here so that it clicks, it changes to hovered and then it's smart animate. So once it is clicked, or maybe let's say it's on hover, the event is on mouse, not mouse leaf, mouse on hover while hovering. Exactly. All right. So I've already created an animation. So what will happen is that I can change this button and just work on the new button that I've added. Let's update this button and show you how it will happen. We select my button here, the one that we've just created, and add it here. But now once I play this animation here, then I hover this. Sorry, just a minute. Hover, then navigate that, change to that and click. Supposed to be on hovering. Right. So let's see what will happen when we refresh this. If it's going to work. Wow. It's supposed to change. Let me confirm that. What could be wrong? Let's add in a button here, for example, and then interaction over, then show prototype. Okay. think there's something that I've not connected. But basically what's supposed to do is that this button, once you hover on your design, it's supposed to hover to the next variant state that you've selected. Forward. All right, I see we are out of time. I'll be able to complete this. Then okay, so let me just go back to the presentation. Just talked about the high fidelity and how to create high fidelity and just connecting the wireframes from what I've just been displaying to you, how you can now create different hovers and working with your frames just to create different animations on your on your prototype. And from my presentation, I think that is it from me at this moment. I'll be happy to welcome questions from you guys. Thanks. Any question that maybe I can answer? I can see a question from on the chat. How will you differentiate the law of proximity and the law of common region? They seem to have the same explanation or what they really do. So, for example, what you say, the law of proximity basically talks about things that are tend to be close together. Let me just navigate to that, then we can look at it again. The law of proximity says that human tends to see things that are grouped together as the same function, like they do the same thing or they do the same function, all right? And the law of common region say that defines elements that are grouped together. So the difference is that the common region just shows things that are grouped together. For example, you can have a card that has icons. Let me just show you how I can demonstrate that from the design. So let's say we have an art a desktop. Let me just this time use a desktop, and let's say desktop, and then from the design, let me just choose something here. I'll show you what the law of proximity really states and how you can distinguish between the two. All right. So, for example, let's say you have images here, and these images are maybe for the represent the company, let's say profile or the leaders of that organization, right? So how you're supposed to arrange it is just visually they look that they're organized together, and once even you add something like text, they should look together. They should be arranged in the same. On your view should be arranged at least together, right? So that they can show that this is a grouping of one particular component. The law of the other law of proximity is about okay, like I said, they actually really tend to be to talk on the same thing, but they have a small of distinction in terms of how you arrange components and how you group them. I hope I answered that correctly. And then I don't seem to see another question. But anyway, if someone has a question, maybe they can open them up and maybe draw it up. So I think I was not sharing that what I was explaining. Sorry.
Hey, Godfrey.
Is a question? Yeah.
Yeah, can I ask my question?
Go
So,
ahead.
do you
Yes.
prototype as you design or completely after you have completed the whole high fidelity designs, or do you prototype when you're still designing? Maybe you design maybe 5 screens and then prototype and then go to the next stage.
Okay, that one can be approached in two different ways. So, like I said, you define what is the end goal. Maybe, for example, if you're doing wireframes, you can just prototype them, because the essence of wireframes, you just want to test the whole experience, the number of clicks, the number of steps. So you can do the 5 screens, then prototype, animate them, and then maybe now take them to the ground and just do the test. But it's also advised, once you're like done with your designs, now you can create the prototypes. It's even easier for you to share with stakeholders and just have other discussions. So it doesn't really debar you from prototyping at any type, at any point, as long as you actually know what you really want to achieve at the end of it. It also helps you shape the entire experience, so you can be able to tell the number of steps that will be performed at a particular, just for the user to complete a particular journey. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. There's a question from the chat. Setting up a design system needs a lot of dictation. Yes, setting up a design system is a lot. And also, I think 2 hours is not enough to just show you how you set up your own design system. I think it requires more time just to show you how you can set a design system, how you can create components, how you can create those different variables and different properties. It really needs a lot. The other question is, does Safaricom has a design system? If you don't mind asking, yes, we have a design system. Like I said, this design system really requires time. It's something that the team here is working on. Great. Any other question? Right. If none, then I can take it back to what are the name? To the hosts. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Godfrey, for the amazing session. Yeah, I hope we have learned. Yeah, so I hope there is no one with a question. Is there any other question to Godfrey? Yep, so I think there is no other question. So thank you, Godfrey, for the amazing session. Yeah, we have learned a lot. Yes, so thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope I've not confused you more. I think you have learned a lot. Design is sometimes not easy as someone might think. I think you have seen from the demonstrations, but I hope I've not confused you. You have picked something that you can use and form the basis of your you going into the field of design. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so we'll be sharing the link to the recording in our YouTube channel. We'll be sharing it in Slack. So yes, you can get it over there. So thank you guys for sticking in until right now. So yeah, thank you. You can leave at your own pleasure.